I want to see if you're with me or you understand what I mean when I say, do you know what it took for the president to come to Georgia this weekend? Do you know what it took for the president in the middle of this election mess to fight for Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue? Do you recognize it? He doesn't want Georgians to give up. He doesn't want Americans to give up. He's angry too. We're all angry. But you can either go down the path of taking that anger and being destructive and counterproductive, or you can focus your frustration and do what the president is doing. And that's fighting for two Republican senators who mark the difference between the country we know and love and socialism and radical leftism that will make this country unrecognizable. That's what the president said in Valdosta over the weekend. Here he was.
If you don't vote, the socialists and the communists win. They win. Georgia patriots must show up and vote for these two incredible people. And I'm telling you, they're two of the finest people you'll ever meet.
Now, I'm told that the enthusiasm, the excitement for the president in Valdosta was enormous. I mean, it was incredible to see the president. And think about this. Look what he's trying to do and accomplish with all the questions about the 2020 election. And he said, I'm going to Georgia and I'm fighting hard. And he didn't spend all night railing against the media. He was focused on David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler. I want to get a news person's view, one of the finest in the business, Greg Clugston, who accompanied the president to Valdosta Saturday night. Portions of the Mike Gallagher Show are brought to you by Fellowship Home Loans. Call 800-510-MIKE or go to fellowshiphomeloans.com. Fellowship Home Loans, welcome home. Greg Clugston is SRN News White House correspondent. You hear him all the time on thousands of radio stations all over the country. And Greg, as I said, was with the president. I believe he got the big ride, Air Force One, something he did many times during this election this whole election cycle. Hey, Greg, welcome back to the Mike Gallagher Show. How are you, sir?
Thank you, Mike. Good morning. Great to be here.
Great to have you with us. When you were on Air Force One with the president?
Yes, we left, Joint Base Andrews or Andrews Air Force Base, flew down to Valdosta. It was one of about a dozen states that I visited with the president on Air Force One over these last few weeks leading up to the election on the campaign trail. So the Valdosta scene over the weekend was very familiar. The trappings of the setup and the crowd and the soundtrack, it was all very much just like it was right before the election during the campaign.
You gotta let me pull the curtain back for just a moment, because you're such a terrific newsman, and millions of people listen to your reporting on SRN News. I want to talk about Valdosta, but I have to ask you what it's like to board Air Force One, travel with the president, what that experience is like. If you don't mind me asking some personal details, where do you guys sit when you travel on Air Force One?
Sure. Well, the press cabin is at the rear of the aircraft, and
right
some
where you
people
belong.
know this, but not everybody knows this, that whatever aircraft the sitting president flies on is called Air Force One, and there are different aircraft in the Air Force fleet. Typically, people think of the large jumbo jet, the 747. That's the one that everybody prefers to ride on because you can stretch out a little bit. There's a little bit more room, including for the members of the press and the Secret Service, who are usually bunched in close quarters. So on the jumbo, it's in the rear section on the right-hand side of the aircraft. And when I'm a member of the White House travel pool, there are 13 reporters and journalist technicians. And I'm the only radio representative in that group. And the smaller 757 aircraft, still a decent-sized airplane, of course, Mike. It's a little more crowded, and we have to pack all our gear in a tighter space, but it's also in the rear of the aircraft. We used the smaller plane to fly to Valdosta because we were at a regional airport that has a shorter runway and requires a smaller aircraft.
So you couldn't hear me when you were talking, but I did say what you reporters need to be in the back of the airplane. You need to be like in the cargo hold. But I'm kidding because I mean that about everybody in the media except you guys at SRN News, because I mean you're way different than the mainstream media. And I wonder if that dynamic, I mean, honestly, SRN and of course our parent company, Salem Communications, and Salem Media Group, do you feel a little different from the other reporters that you travel with who are decidedly mainstream media, knowing that you're part of an organization that I think we're both proud to be a part of, that is most decidedly not mainstream, not MSM?
Yeah, that's been an interesting dynamic. I've been at the White House now for over 20 years. A lot of people know my work. They know the company that I work for. Yet I'm a part of the White House Press Corps, a member of the Correspondents Association. And so, my task is to observe what is happening, listen to what's being said, explain to our radio listeners what a president, what an administration is doing. And
Sure.
so I'm doing that right along with my colleagues, and thankfully, hopefully, have the respect of some, if not most or all of them.
Well, that's well deserved. You do have the respect of news people and certainly our listeners. Anybody ever give you any guff?
Not a lot face to face. When you talk about guff, not me personally, but when we were there in Valdosta Saturday night, Mike, the working press area for the travel press corps is right in the midst of the crowd. I mean, we are surrounded on all sides by fencing, but very close to the people. We got an earful from at least one man right near the end of the speech. He was going after the mainstream media pretty hard, and we heard it all.
We've seen examples of that even on Fox News, where the reporters are doing stand-ups, Griff Jenkins and others, and people are yelling,
Yep.
fake news, fake news. People are fired up. People are angry. Greg Clugston is with us. He's SRN News White House correspondent. He accompanied President Trump on Air Force One Saturday night as they went to the rally in Valdosta, Georgia. Talk to me a little bit, Greg, about the mood and the atmosphere of the thousands and thousands of people who were there. I'm sure you were able to recognize and observe that same anger that I'm getting from my callers every day here on the Mike Gallagher Show.
We were wondering, Mike, what it was going to be like, because this was a month after the election. I had been, as I mentioned, on the campaign trail quite a bit, including that last 48-hour stretch when we were traveling with the president, doing 5 rallies a day each of the last 2 days. And there was such energy and emotion, and the crowds were very large for the president. And we wondered a month later how that was going to look at this rally. Well, as I mentioned earlier, the trappings and everything, it looked as if we were transported back to Election Day. The vigor, the enthusiasm was there. The crowd definitely very responsive, and as you point out, very angry, as we heard from a few people who were pointing their direction, pointing their voices in the direction of the press corps. But certainly the president, he works off of this energy of the crowd, not only to talk about his grievances about the presidential race, but then also, as you've been talking about, really focusing on the Senate runoff elections.
And I want to take a moment to you've covered this president. You've traveled with him all over the country, as you said. You've been with the president many times at rallies like the one in Valdosta. I'm not sure if Americans fully recognize the enormity of the president's decision to come to Georgia on a Saturday night when, as you say, he is contesting the legitimacy of the presidential election. He's got great pushback, big reservations about the legitimacy of this election, and yet, I believe it's real profound to see the commitment the president has for Senators Loeffler and Perdue.
Sure. Anytime any American president travels anywhere, there are so many logistics involved, and Secret Service and all of the planning and advance work that has to be done on so many different levels. So it's not as if the president just says, hey, I'm just going to do this and it's an easy thing. It's always a big deal when an American president will travel. And so in that light, Mike, you're right to say that he could have been just sitting and remaining at the White House and tweeting as he often does, and talking about the Georgia election. But for him to decide to travel, to be there, to organize it so that you had thousands of people in attendance, it shows that Republicans are putting a lot of priority on winning, obviously at least one, but hopefully both of these races for the party's sake.
Greg Clugston, I appreciate the work you do, your professionalism, and your dedication to excellence. You do a terrific job, and it's nice to get some of your insights as you travel with the president to Valdosta over the weekend. All the best, Greg.
Thanks, Mike. Great to see you.